What is up, everyone? Julian here today. I'm back, and I'm going to be showing you how to make the most powerful hard techno kicks you've ever heard in your life. To go along with this video, I've just dropped a new sample pack called 25 Most Powerful Hard Techno Kicks Ever. The link is right at the top of the description, and as you can see right over here, what you get in this pack is 25 extremely hard techno kicks, all split into the individual layers as well. So if I open up this right here, yeah, you can see we get all the individual layers for each of these. Plus, I've also included the Ableton projects. So you really get, yeah, you can see even that. We also have this bonus drum loops. You can see which all have individual layers as well. And bonus melody loops. So I'll play you a little bit of stuff from the pack. You can hear all super solid stuff. And then also, here's one of the drum loops. And the melody loops. So, if you like what you hear, the link is right at the top of the description. Definitely go grab that if you're trying to make your best possible tracks. You know, I put a lot of time into this, and I've really studied and learned how to make these kicks. And if you want to make your best possible tracks, grab this pack, and I promise your tracks will go to the next level. Link is at the top of the description. It also helps support me. You know, guys, I don't make a whole lot just off of YouTube, but with these different packs, I'm able to keep bringing you guys new videos on how to make styles that aren't out there just yet. So, link is at the top of the description. Thank you so much for all the support, guys. Let's dive in. So, this is using the method that I use to make those types of kicks. This is actually one of the kicks from that pack, and I'm going to be showing you the different layers that you're going to have here. So, we have this kick in front of us. So the first thing here is going to just be your main kick. And this is always going to be pretty dry, right? You really want to focus on getting a good sample for this rather than doing a whole lot of extra processing. Now it is going into a tiny bit of group processing, so it's not completely dry. But at the end of the day, like, if you don't have a good sample and then you try to oversaturate it or something, I've been guilty of this in the past as well. You know, you can only get it to be so good. Like, yes, the saturation will make it fatter, will make it more full, and then you're going to go, oh, wow, my kick is fatter all of a sudden. I must be doing it right. But actually, it's not really better. It's just kind of like taking something that's not so good and kind of polishing it a little, versus the idea here is you just have a really high quality sample. Right? Like, there's just a lot of punch in that kick. And then when you just turn that up, you can see it's not that, you know, it's actually up pretty loud, right? That's all you need. And the way you do that is usually through layering. Now, I make, like this kick, for example, was made where, like, what you do is maybe you take this one, could be like your lows, so we'll put an EQ3 on there. And then on this layer that I duplicated, we get another kick. Put another EQ3 on there. And that would be the mids and highs. And then let's look for another sample. Maybe like this one. And then when we put these together, see, it makes a new kick. So I recommend doing that, because what you can do is you can basically find different kick samples, and maybe one would be good with the lows, but it doesn't have the mids and highs. Or one has the mids and highs, but it doesn't really have the lows. And maybe normally you would go and just try to drop a bunch of saturation or something on there, and that would be how you would fix it. But instead, just take the kick that has the really good lows but not good mids and highs, and take just the lows of that, and take just the mids and highs, or just the mids, or wherever you want to go, of the kick that's just good in that range, put them together, and you make a really good kick sample. You know, again, it's really that over processing. I can't sell it enough. Like, it just isn't, you don't need it. But then after that, the next step is actually going to be, we're adding a little bit more punch onto the kick with this layer. So here's the kick by itself, and then with the punch. Right, so you hear what that adds. And the way we're making this is, it's actually using that exact same kick that I used right up there, right? I had to turn it down a little bit going into this rack right here. But basically what this rack is doing is we're taking, you can see, just really like, yeah, you can see the mids and highs of the kick. Really, mostly it's just the highs, and then we're distorting just the high end. And that creates this really like big, fat kind of click onto the kick. And the idea here is that, yeah, you're not really hearing much of the mids or lows really on this. And then when you just put that right on top of the other kick, it's going to sit really nicely. Now, part of what makes it sit really nicely is the fact that with this first kick and this one, they're the exact same sample. Right? I just showed you that method a second ago to kind of make the initial bass kick sample. But when you're doing this type of thing, where like you have your kick and you just want to add like an extra punch layer on there, basically, if you try to use a different kick here, you're going to run into a lot of different issues like phasing, and it's just not going to be quite as punchy. But if you just take the same kick that you use and then make a layer where it's like just the highs getting distorted and kind of becoming more punchy, it's going to go a long way, and I think it's going to just sound a lot better and kind of more concise. And the key to this layer is basically just turning it down a lot. Like, it's really quiet, because if you start to turn it up too much, you know, it can really take over, right? So you really just want like a little tiny bit. And the way I recommend doing that, turn it all the way down and just turn it up slowly and listen to it and stop when it's right. Right, like I'll stop it there. Cool, and then the last layer here that is probably the most intricate is the bass. And what's happening here is I'm kind of combining a few techniques to make this new type of bass that I've actually never shown you guys before. So what we're doing here is we're taking that main kick, so I'll just start from the simpler here and then turn everything on as we go. So we're taking this main kick, right, that you heard up top. And what we're doing is, you can see we're actually warping it. So you can take this and warp it, and then I stretch it out. You can see I've actually got this at the maximum setting, right? And you can hear what happens. Obviously you get that in the high end and mids, but what you're getting is it stretches out the bass, and you get this really full sounding bass. So then all you have to do is just take a low pass filter, and now we have this nice fat bass thing. And it goes back to what I was saying a second ago, where just all three of these are using the exact same kick. Because if you do that, the bass is going to sound really, really good with these other layers as well, because it's all going to be really in tune and just very clean, versus if I tried to grab another kick sample to make this bass. But then once you have that, you can honestly just use that in some tracks if you want. I also added a little bit of attack on there, so it's not so like punchy right away, because you don't need this to be. You just want it to be like a bass wave. And then we have this rumble bass percussion rack that I created. So this is actually a new rack that I've never shown you guys before. But what it is it's pretty much like multi-band distortion, right? Like you can see we've got our highs, our mids, which you can hear are nice and crunchy, and then the lows. So the lows are completely dry, right? You know, you just want to preserve that. We've already got a nice fat bass coming out of the kick. We don't need to add a whole lot of stuff onto that. Just turn it up louder. Then on the mids, what we're doing is we're distorting it, and then I'm actually putting it into this bandpass filter. And the secret to the bandpass filter is we're using a little bit of filter drive, but also you can see the LFO here is set to 8th notes. So it's kind of like creating like a bit of movement in there. Here's without that. And with it. It's super subtle, but you get that little like dun dun dun. And you can even put this at different like... See, when you put it at six notes, you get a different rhythm. So I recommend playing around with that. You can get a lot of different sounds that way. But yeah, so then what's happening is then we're distorting that with this amp here. And that's what gives you like that really juicy sound, is the bandpass filter going into the amp. Here's without the bandpass. See, it's kind of dull. It's not really got that thing you want. And then when you turn on the bandpass, because you're just focusing so much on this one range here. Right? So then after that, we just have the EQ3, just taking just the mids. Which here's without that. That sounds kind of cool too. You could use that, but then we have the highs. And the highs are kind of a similar technique. Again, we have an overdrive, a bandpass filter with another LFO on it. This one you can really hear that. Dun, 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 dun. Another overdrive after the filter to bring it out a bit. And then an EQ3, which is taking just the highs. And that's what that sounds like without that. Right, so it's kind of like a terrible sound. But if you take just the high end of that, that sounds really good. And then yeah, that's the bass with all three layers put together. And then I actually have a little bit of reverb, which is really small, but it kind of gives a bit of space to it. It makes it feel a bit more full. I have a compressor, which is sidechaining this to the kick. An EQ8, which actually just cuts some of the highs to make it a little bit more bass focused, boosts the bass a little, and also cuts right here at 21 hertz, because you can't hear that frequency range, but it can actually make your mix a lot more messy if you leave stuff in under there. In terms of mastering, like, you're not going to have as much headroom, and there's going to be more information being thrown at your limiter for mastering. So if you get rid of that, you can actually get a louder master on your track. And then I have a utility here, just converting it to mono. Because that reverb, you don't actually want it to be like a stereo reverb, right? And yeah, and then when we put the three layers together, there's a little bit of processing, like not really that much. So here's without it. And then with it. So yeah, super subtle, but it just provides a little bit of glue. So we've got this drum bus here. You can see it's set like this. And then we have the dry wet on literally 6.3%. Like not that high at all. But with just a little bit of it on there, it's just that tiny little bit of glue to kind of fill in some of the cracks there and make it feel like one thing. You know, it really puts the kick and the punch layer and the bass all into like making them feel like they're together. Then we have an EQ8, and this is just kind of repeating what I was talking about with the bass a second ago, where you're just cutting out the low end below a certain point, so now you'll have a lot more headroom in your track for mastering, and you can ultimately have a fatter and more full track. And yeah. So that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the 25 most powerful hard techno kicks ever. Link is right at the top of the description. Definitely go grab this if you want to take your tracks to the next level, because it's a super solid value. I've put a ton of time into studying and learning how these kicks work, and now I've created a really solid library of kicks that you guys can go and take all my work that I've put in and then go and build on it and make your own tracks that are even better than you ever could have imagined. So again, I'll play you a few demo samples from here. So once again, you get the 25 kicks, all split individual layers, plus the Ableton projects for each individual kick as well. Plus you get these bonus drum loops and the bonus melody loops. Everything has individual layers, you know, it's super workable. You can see in here, you know, you get all the individual layers for everything. So you can really take these and take them apart and make something awesome. So definitely go grab that at the top of the description. It really helps support me. Plus, you guys will get a really solid library of kicks to take your tracks to the next level. Thank you so much for all the support, guys. Every little bit helps. and I will see you soon with another video.